really good words in that song. So we started this series on faith a few weeks back. I said we'd take it through Christmas and we'd take it into the new year with us, which is what we're doing. And today we continue in this You've Got to Have Faith series with the faith of a wise man. And I want to spend a few moments thinking about the wise men. They aren't really in the Christmas story. Again, we like to stick them on the nativity cards and pictures and models and so on, but they weren't there right at that moment on the time when Jesus was born. But we'll think about that as we go through. The wise men are spoken about in Matthew's Gospel, and we read the passage from Matthew's Gospel a few moments ago from Matthew 2 and the first verses from that chapter. As I say, if you want to keep it open, it might give you some help as I'm talking about them. Just read the words and you'll take it in more. Matthew 2. The first thing we notice in verse 1 of Matthew 2 is that the visitors were magi. Magi, say how you like. And they are from the east. That's the first thing we see in this passage. Now that doesn't give us a lot, but it does give us something. The word magi comes from the ancient Persian word magaruno, which actually is a religious caste of the Zoroastrian religion. And you're already thinking, where is this leading? They're not Christians, they're not God followers, they're not from Israel. So they were possibly from the eastern part of the Persian Empire. Much of that today is Iran. And they would have been possibly priests of a different religion. The Zoroastrianism holds to the search for truth from lies. That was what they believed in. That was what they were seeking out in their life, to search out for the truth among lies. Interesting then that they put great effort into seeking this baby Jesus, this little toddler Jesus maybe, to seek out the truth. That was their quest. So for them to travel doing what they did, and I'm going to describe it in a moment, they were seeking out the truth. Zoroastrian priests were astrologers, and you probably heard at times that the three wise men, if there were three, the wise men at least, were possibly astrologers. So it's not surprising that they decide to make this journey in verse 2 based upon the sighting of a star. It's also important to note that their homes were in the east. Not the north, not the south, not the west, but the east. You say, well, what does that really matter that they were coming from the east? You know, whenever I speak up the front here, I tend, when I'm talking about going towards God, I tend to go this way. I mean, you've picked this up by now, surely. But I tend to go this way. It just kind of helps me focus, and I hope it helps you focus as well. So when I talk about heading towards God and God's presence and heading in His direction, I normally say this way. And I always say, if we start rebelling, we kind of turn away. And if we go in the opposite direction, we know that that is totally the wrong way, and this is going towards the enemy's territory and so on. So that's kind of how I do it from up the front here. It gives me a focus, and I hope it gives you a focus as well. So here it says that their homes were in the east, not the north, not the south, not the west. Throughout the Bible, moving east, if you're moving towards the east, then that is a metaphor for moving away from God's presence. So if you see in the Bible, particularly in the Old Testament, where it talks about perhaps heading east, you know that people are going away from God and not towards Him. And moving west gets you closer to Him. So maybe without me even thinking about it, I know that's not west. I don't think it's west anyway. But at least if you had a map, it would be west and east, and perhaps I'm doing the right thing in the first place. So these Magi were from the east, and they are travelling therefore to the west to see the Messiah. So again, Matthew, who is a Jewish writer, if you like, of the Gospels. Some of the four Gospels were written by different types of people, for different groups of people, but Matthew was particularly writing for the Jews, and he is saying, these are coming from the east, away from God, and they are heading west towards God. They are heading west towards Jesus. They're getting closer to the presence of the Lord. Now in verse 3, it tells us, if you look at verse 3, it tells us that these wise guys, as I sometimes call them in the past, these Magi, were pretty well known. You say, it doesn't actually say that. No, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that they were pretty well known, but what it does say was that they got an audience with King Herod immediately. Now, King Herod would not just welcome anyone off the doorstep to come in. He would only have those who were well known, those who were powerful, those who were famous in some way. And so to get a visit to Herod, they must have been pretty respected, well-known people, or powerful people, that would have been welcome into the king's presence straight away. And it also says that all of Jerusalem was disturbed by their story. So again, it was just someone off the street who was kind of saying these things. You know, why would you be disturbed about it? But for these guys to come in, they must have been fairly well known. They must have been known to be powerful people from another country. And whatever they said disturbed the whole of the city. Also, anyone that famous, anyone that powerful, anyone that wealthy as they probably were, judging by what they were bringing, and travelling that far, would have had an entourage on them, with them. Some suggest they could have even had 1,000 people with them. I don't know. But there was a whole group of them. It wasn't just, three wise guys on camels heading towards the west. We don't know there was three anyway, and we're told that they wouldn't have just come alone. They would have been travelling a long time. And again, just get this. If they are from eastern Persia, we'll make that over there. If they were from eastern Persia, that's 1,000 miles away from Bethlehem. And that's a long way when you haven't got a train or a car. And it must have taken, imagine them just travelling along, it must have taken 2-3 months to travel 1,000 miles on foot or on an animal of some way. And especially with a whole group of them coming. They've had to have carried pretty much everything with them for 3 months. And remember, once they get there after 2 or 3 months, they've got to go back for 2 or 3 months. So it's a whole lot of stuff they've got to bring with them. I mean, they could go to a marketplace and the bazaar and so on and buy a few things, but in general they've had to bought their tents and their pots and pans and clothing and all those things for 4, 5, 6 months journey. Now that would have taken a great deal of planning, a lot of preparation, and a lot of people to come with them to help them. Important people like these would not come on their own. They'd bring their servants and their cooks and all those with them as well. So let's go back. Before travelling, before the preparation for travelling, came the viewing of this new star. And the new star appeared at Christ's birth. And they saw it. They were over there, weren't they? They saw it. Like that bright light over there. And they figured out what it meant. This new star appeared in the sky. This new bright light appeared in the sky. And they knew that meant a new king had been born, and they need to go and see this new king. And so, again, they're important people. They would have probably had to got permission to leave for 6 months from their area, their kingdom, their city or whatever, and make arrangements to leave. And it really was, if you can imagine, this was a journey of faith. That's why they included that in this faith series. They made a real journey of faith. Not everyone would just see a star in the sky and go, oh yes, someone's important born, and we'll pack up everything and we'll travel for 6 months to go and see this person and come back again. And we'll take everything with us, and we've got big gifts to take and all of that. That was a real journey of faith. A faith to kind of say, we really believe that someone important has been born and we want to go and see him. And so finally they get there. And as I say, contrary to most nativity scenes and greetings cards, Jesus was not still lying in the manger when the 3 wise men turned up, or the wise men turned up. He was not still in the animal shelter at the inn. This was now some months maybe afterwards. Again, we don't know, we can't get the whole time span, but we get the idea that the star appears, they travel, and it would have been a time. They are still in Jerusalem, they are still in Bethlehem though. They haven't moved out of Bethlehem. So we kind of figure that if Jesus was born, they found somewhere to live there. Joseph perhaps had got a job as a carpenter somewhere, because in the storyline, when the Magi turn up at the house, it says, at a house, not at the inn, at a house, there's no mention of Joseph. So Joseph probably is now, got a job in his carpentry business somewhere in Bethlehem, and he's helping out do some carpentry there to make a living to keep going. But they are staying there in Bethlehem because it's David's town. It is significant that they stay there for the time being. And gifts were given. And again, we won't have to go through the gifts because you know those 3 gifts. You know what they represent for the most part. But in giving Jesus portions of their wealth, because each of those 3 gifts were valuable, in giving something of these wise guys' wealth to Jesus, they were making a very public statement that they considered it right to give up something valuable that they had to this little toddler, this little baby, whatever he was then. And they're acknowledging that he is a king, that he is of great value, he is of great worth, he is worthy to be worshipped. They knew how important he would be to the world. And they showed their devotion to him by bringing gifts. And of course the gifts gave a hint, if you like, to Jesus' future. How did those wise guys know that what they were bringing were actually significant? God had somehow spoken into their lives for them to bring them. So, I'm going to conclude, as I've pretty much been doing every time I've given a message on faith in the last few weeks, and give a little challenge, give a little question. We talked about the faith of these wise men, doing all of that to see Jesus. How is your faith? How is your faith? Do you have enough faith to take time, to take energy to meet with Jesus every day? And we don't have to travel 1,000 miles. But we do need to take time and energy to stop and say, right, I'm going to pray. I'm going to spend some time with the Lord. And I'm going to prepare for that. And I'm going to say, right, I'm going to put my phone off now. I'm going to do it when nothing else is on. I'm going to turn off any distractions. I'm going to go to a quiet area or whatever. And I'm going to do kind of like the wise guys did, only in a shorter space of time. I'm just going to say, right, I'm going to travel, if you like, to a little room, to a little place, and I'm going to meet with Jesus. Do you have the faith to do that every day? Do you have enough faith to acknowledge that Jesus is King of your life? To bow down and worship him and say, Jesus, you are my Lord. And you know what Lord means. We say it very easily. But here are these wise guys coming with gifts and kind of saying, you are to be worshipped. You are valuable. You are special. You are a king in the making. Do we have that faith that we can come to Jesus and say, you are Lord? That means whatever you say, I can do. Do we have enough faith to trust his word? And his word, of course, we find in the Bible. Even if you just read the four Gospels over and over again, every time you read them, you'd get something new out of it. You'd learn something more about Jesus. You'd learn something more about yourself. You'd learn something about what God wants you to do. But I hope you read more than four Gospels. But you know what I'm saying? Have we the faith to go, right, I'm going to open up this word today. And I'm going to spend some time just studying it and praying about it. How's your faith? Let's pray. Our Father God, as we read the Christmas story again, we think about the Magi who came from the west, came from the east and went to the west, travelled nearer to you in faith to find this new king born. Father, over this Christmas, when it's so tempting with all the commercialism, with all the parties, with all the pressures on family to come this way and do that thing, that we end up travelling in the wrong direction. Lord, let us this Christmas travel to the west and to enter into your presence and to give you our worship, our devotion, our honour. For you are King of kings and Lord of lords, and you deserve everything that we can offer. We praise you, Lord. Amen.